All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Ball. I'm a librarian in the Business and Economics Department at Los Angeles Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be hearing about a wonderful program called the Microenterprise Home Kitchen Operation, or MEHKO, and that's a program of the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity and the Department of Public Health. We have a great speaker that will be telling you all about MEHKO today. Before I introduce her, I'm going to just go over a few housekeeping items so that you will be aware of some things that we're going to be doing today. First of all, as always, we are recording this live stream. And so as soon as we are done with the program today, what you'll be able to do is come back to the library's YouTube channel, and we will have the video uploaded. You can always come back and watch it if you missed any part today that you'd like to review, or you can also share the link with somebody that you know who was not able to be here today. Another thing I'd like to let you know is that we are going to be doing the same program in Spanish 2 days from now. That's going to be Thursday, August 7th, same time, 2 p.m., and the same place here at the library's YouTube channel. So again, if you know anybody that could be interested in that, please let them know. Finally, what I want to share with you is with regard to questions. We would love for you to ask any questions you have of our presenter. We can't see you or hear you here on YouTube, but we can see the questions that you put into the chat box. So at any time, if you have questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box. Now, you will need to be logged into your YouTube account to be able to use that feature. That will take just a few minutes if you want to do that now. And even if you don't have a YouTube account, you could probably sign up very quickly if you wanted to participate by asking questions. Otherwise, feel free to just view. And again, with the questions, send them through at any point. We will be holding on till the end to address those when we have a Q&A session after the presentation. And with that, I am very pleased to introduce today's presenter, Angelica Urquijo, and she is the president and founder of the Imagen Group, which is a consulting firm specializing in community outreach, communications, marketing, and media relations. Angelica is a former television reporter and news anchor with more than a decade of on-camera experience. She understands the power of authentic connection and audience engagement. Today, she leads with purpose, helping organizations and businesses meaningfully connect with the Hispanic community. Through the MEHKO Group, Angelica and her team partner with the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity and the Department of Public Health to lead the education, outreach, and technical support for the county's Microenterprise Home Kitchen Operation, or MEHKO program. And her group's work helps residents and aspiring entrepreneurs to navigate the process to become permitted MEHKO operators. Angelica holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from USC's Marshall School of Business. So thank you so much, Angelica, for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and let you take over with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danelle, for having us here. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with our friends at the Los Angeles Library, and they have so many great resources available to the community. And that's why this program is so special. We're honored. Our team, the Imagen Group, is collaborating with 2 departments within LA County, as Danielle mentioned, LA Department of Economic Opportunity and Public Health. So the MEHKO program is not new to the state of California. It's actually been in existence since 2019 at the state level, with the first county embracing MEHKO up in the San Francisco area. Close by, if you have friends and family in Riverside County, San Diego County, they've been actually enjoying the benefits of MEHKO since 2019. So here in LA County, this is very new, effective in November. It actually is something that LA County embraced, and that's thanks to 2 of our supervisors, Holly Mitchell and Hilda Solis. So we can thank them for bringing those opportunities to the community. As we start the presentation today, this program is available to residents through most of LA County. Now, there's an exception. There are 3 cities. If you're watching this either today or later, the rebroadcast, if you live in the cities of Pasadena, Long Beach, and Vernon, then you'll have to actually contact those cities directly. And the reason is that those are the 3 cities, Long Beach, Pasadena, and Vernon. They have their own health department. So they'll be the ones that'll be directing any MEHKO programs in their individual cities. Everybody else, you're all eligible to become MEHKO operators. So let's get started and let's take a look at the agenda for today and some of the items that we'll be covering today in our presentation. We'll look at first the requirements of permitting. We're going to spend some time overlooking the food safety basics. We'll prepare you for the inspection. And then we're going to leave some time at the end, as Danielle said, to answer any questions that you may have. The MEHKO program is wonderful because there's so much flexibility with this program. And so once you start, you're not, pigeonholed into that one type of a format. You can move around, and as you get more comfortable with the program, you might want to change. So there you see on the screen the 3 options that we have. So we can offer our customers a delivery option, right? So somebody orders the delicious food you're going to be making, and you can arrange to have that food delivered. Second, you can have people actually come up to your home and pick up the items. So maybe that's appropriate in your neighborhood. Your neighbors know that you have a MEHKO, and you're okay with having them come over and pick up the food. The third option is what really makes it so special and unique, and it enables our MEHKO operators to feel like they're running a restaurant, and you are a mini restaurant. That's what the MEHKO program. So the 3 options are, again, you have the delivery option, the takeout, the sit down. You could offer any of the above, all of them, and you could maybe start off a delivery option, and maybe as you get more comfortable, then maybe at some point you might want to offer the sit down option. That's up to you. And again, lots of flexibility with this program. What we want you to remember, and one of the main things with the operations for the MEHKO, is anything that you prepare, you cook, and you serve that day, you have to actually sell it. You might be preparing your meatloaf or your spaghetti, and you're closing shop at 5, and you still have half a pot of the spaghetti sauce that's on the stove. Well, with the MEHKO program, you are not able to put that in a container and store it in the refrigerator and sell it the next day. We'll talk about that later. But that's the main thing with this program, is that you really want to be kind of deliberate in terms of what you're going to be making. Some people do pre-orders because you're not able to store, refrigerate anything that you don't sell that day. Just like there are many options in terms of how you want to run your MEHKO, you also have a lot of options when it comes to what you're going to be selling. Maybe your expertise is making appetizers. Maybe you make the best main dish, or you have this beverage that's really a filling, like a meal substitute, or it's maybe the dessert that everybody that has tried your famous dessert says that you should actually be selling this. So MEHKO enables you to sell each of these individually, or if you want, you could also offer the family options, right? The family meals, and offer all of these items. And again, you could maybe start with one, and then maybe you'll modify that as you go on. And we'll talk about later what happens and what's the process you need to follow when you change out your menu. As far as capacity, because this is really about you having a mini restaurant, it is about getting you started. So there is a limit to the quantity of the items that you can sell. So it's 30 meals per day with no more than 90 a week. There's also the other scenario is in terms of how much I can make annually. I can make $100,000, no more than that. So depending on what you're making, in some cases, you're able to then speak with the inspector when they come over your home. And maybe, for instance, I'm selling a little bag of empanadas, or I'm selling like a protein drink, very special with lots of fruits, and really 30 a day. Can we just come up with a way that I can track it and ensure that I don't make more than $100,000 a year? So again, that's a conversation for you to have, and it's a very case by case. If you have your offering is very unique, and where they say that, you know what, it doesn't really make sense for you to only be selling 30. Let's talk about that. Again, not a fit for everybody, but something to bring up. There is another way for you to expand your capacity, and that is by actually adding a compact mobile food operation, right? Most people refer to those as your cart, right? Your food cart. Well, in this case, you still retain, you have your main source of where you're preparing your food is your MEHKO, right? You have your MEHKO permit. And now you're able to then have a permitted cart. You can have up to 2. So as long as a cart is permitted by public health, you're able to have up to 2 carts. And now, as you can see there, the meal count, instead of it being 30, I'm now able to sell 80 or 200 a week. And then my earnings have gone up to $150,000. So that's something for you to then think about as another option. Again, you don't have to decide on this at the beginning. It's something that you can, if you think that this is something that's going to fit into your business model, what you're going to want to sell, then that's something to keep in mind and learn more about the process of you then acquiring the compact mobile food operations. There are some criteria. You need to have the capacity in your home to be able to store it in the covered area. There needs to be the place where you're going to be able to clean it, to rinse things off. And again, there's very specific things. And then also determining what is the type of cart, depending on what you're going to be selling, that public health will allow you to have. So it's something to keep in mind for the future. So people ask, some of the questions they ask is, well, I'm going to be selling from home. It's a home-based business. How are people going to find me? We know the power behind social media, right? Many of you, that's how you found that there's the webinar today. You either saw it directly from the library, or maybe you saw a Facebook ad, or you follow Instagram and people shared it there. There's all sorts of ways to get the word out. And that's going to be really key for you to grow your MEHKO business. So one of the options and one of the things that you want to think about as well is having a website so that your customer has a place to go. People are very visual. They'll be able to see pictures of your food offerings. So anything that you can do online, social media, that's permitted. Now, what's not permitted is what we tend to think about when we think of a traditional brick and mortar restaurant, right? When we're driving in our neighborhoods or we're visiting a new city and we're hungry and we're kind of looking to see what sign and what language, what wording grabs us and prompts us to walk in the door. With the MEHKO program, because you're based in a neighborhood, remember, it's all about being a good neighbor and not being intrusive. So you're not allowed to have those big neon signs like a restaurant might have. You're not able to have any kind of sign. So not even a sign that's on the sidewalk. No signs are permitted, no outside advertising when you have a MEHKO. So again, now you see how important the online is going to be, as well as a personal touch point. You know how in your own neighborhoods, you might be near large office buildings, a hospital, maybe there's car dealerships. So maybe either yourself or maybe somebody that you hire, or if you have children, grandchildren, your neighbors, you can hand out some flyers, menus, maybe some samples of what you're going to be preparing, and invite people to support you. We all know now everybody really is about supporting small businesses. So this is a great opportunity for you to start your business as a MEHKO operator. Other things to keep in mind when it comes to the MEHKO. So who is your customer? Your customer, when you're a MEHKO operator, is the customer who orders your food. So for instance, it could be Danielle and her team there at the library. It could be myself and my team. It could be some of the staff from Department of Economic Opportunity, or maybe there's some of the nurses that work at the hospital near your community. They are your customers. They're the people that order the food. So we're not going to be selling to another restaurant that might be in the neighborhood. I'm not going to be able to sell to a small market, bodegas that are in my neighborhood, no wholesalers. It's strictly your customer. Now, when it comes to delivering the food to your customer, third-party delivery apps are not permitted. So we know that during the pandemic, they became very popular, the Uber Eats, the Postmates, and the Grubhub, just to name a few. But with this program, MEHKO, it's all about helping you thrive as a small business. I don't know if many of you know that when you order from these third-party apps, they take a large percentage of what would be going to the small business. So that's one of the reasons, right, why we won't be using third-party apps to deliver our food to our customer. We'll look at other mechanisms. It's also a way, the MEHKO, is to create economy, right? To create jobs, opportunities for your neighbors. Maybe there's a stay-at-home mom. Maybe there are some college students, your own, kids, or maybe there's a single mom in the community. Those are people that can help you, and they can then be the employees that help you deliver in with other things that you might have need for in the MEHKO. So as I shared, we're not able to sell to outside restaurants. Now, as a MEHKO, you're also not able to, the business itself, the MEHKO can't serve as a caterer. So you can't be out, you have a birthday, you have a baptism, a wedding, there's a chamber event. You can't per se serve as a caterer. You could sell them the food, but you can't be there serving the food. So those are things to keep in mind. Also, if you currently are the holder of a cottage license, and those are very, very small and very limited in terms of what that is. That could be dried fruit. It could be prepackaged cookies. It could be bread. It could be fudge, things like that. If you have a cottage license and you really need to decide, this is more advantageous for me to have a MEHKO than a cottage. You can't have both. It's one or the other. That's something that we want you to be aware of early on in making your decision. Other things to keep in mind in reference to items that are not allowed in the MEHKO. We are not able to serve or sell raw oysters. We can't produce or sell raw milk. We shared earlier, no reselling food to other facilities. No displaying signage outside of our MEHKO or home. We're not able to manufacture ice cream or dairy products as well. And then food that is requiring a process that requires a hazard analysis critical control point, it's known the acronyms HACCP plan, are not permitted as well. Those examples, for instance, somebody making kimchi or ceviche, right, that are made, the ceviche is cooked by lemon. Those are things that are a little bit more high risk, and we don't want you to have any kind of issues where potentially your customer gets sick. So those types of foods, not able to actually prepare and sell through your MEHKO. Also, because this is a state program, it started from the state and it's trickled down to the counties, you are not allowed to serve alcohol or food that contains alcohol without a license for the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control. Now, you can include it as part of your menu, not your menu, but your recipe. So for instance, I'm going to add that to some of the marinade for the chicken. I'm going to add some beer. I can do that. I'm going to add a little bit of the red wine to my sauce to make my pasta. That's fine. But you're not able to sell alongside your dinner a glass of wine or bottle of beer. Those are off limits. For now, the department only issues the license to brick and mortar restaurants. And then as a reminder, we're not able to operate as a MEHKO, a catering business itself. And we're not going to be using third-party apps as it pertains to delivering the food to our customers. Because the MEHKO is in your neighborhood, we're going to talk about multiple times is the importance of being a good neighbor, right? It's all about ensuring that there is no disruption to your community, that the neighbors don't call and complain, depending on where you live, whether they're calling directly your city, whether they're calling public health. We want to eliminate any of that potential occurring and possibly then meaning that your business is shut down. So think about all of these things that we're going to cover and how we're going to make sure that none of this is applicable because I'm going to be a good neighbor. So we want to keep noise to a minimum, depending on whether you're having people that are going to be eating in your backyard or people that are going to be picking up the food. People have different work schedules. So we always want to be cognizant and very aware of minimizing noise that's coming out of your home and your MEHKO. Parking's always at a premium. So we want to always be aware of traffic, minimizing traffic. Where are people going to park? Where, if people are going to come to pick up the food, if I'm going to be offering sit down, is there a lot nearby that we can make arrangements where people can park there? Or is there going to be the driveway I'm always going to leave clear for the delivery person to be able to utilize that, or people that are picking up their food? How am I going to be disposing of my leftovers of the day of the garbage, right? You'll actually take a class as part of this process, and they'll more in detail in terms of certain ways of disposing of, liquids, oils, grease, things like that. We want to make sure that we dispose of things properly so that we don't have issues with odors. We're not attracting vermin. We're not attracting roaches, rats. Our neighbors are going to say, we had no problem everything was perfect in this neighborhood until that MEHKO opened up, right? We don't want that to happen. So again, start thinking even before you open your MEHKO is, how am I going to make sure that all that is controlled? Also, making sure that I'm not running any unpermitted operations from my home where I have my MEHKO. These are just things to keep in mind. If you have your camera and you want to snap a picture, they're things for you to start thinking ahead about how you're going to ensure that that's not you when you think about a MEHKO. In this next part of the presentation, we're going to focus on your application, the inspection process, and then we'll close out with ultimately receiving your permit from public health. So what's included in my application? You'll have a completed public health permit application for the MEHKO, and you can download that from the public health website. Or if you're at one of our events, sometimes we will be having in the upcoming months technical support clinics, and you might have some there that you can pick up if you feel more comfortable filling that out manually and then turning that in rather than uploading it. So it's up to you. You'll also include what is called the standard operating procedures, the SOP, with the menu. Now think of this as your plan, your business plan for your restaurant, for your MEHKO. This is where you're going to spend a little bit more time, but no worries. It's not something you're creating from scratch, right? It's actually, again, all this is really accessible on the public health website. And again, if you happen to be at one of our technical support clinics, and we'll have copies of that. It's more about filling in those blanks and acknowledging some of the things that we talked about earlier, right? I'm not going to be selling any raw oysters. I'm not going to be selling any alcoholic beverages. These are the hours I'm going to be working. This is what I'm going to be selling. This is how I'm going to be getting the word out. These are the platforms I'm going to be using: Instagram, Facebook. And then you're also going to include your menu. So in this case, they don't need to see your recipe. They are just interested, public health is interested in seeing what is it that you're going to offer? What is it you're going to prepare? What are the ingredients? Again, we're just trying to make sure that nothing is in the food that was mentioned in those items that I can't include those. Again, those are higher risk. And we just want to minimize your risk, right? That's all that they're really concerned about, is making sure that there's nothing, ingredients in your menu items that could potentially, make somebody sick. In addition to that, you'll also be submitting the certificate that you've successfully completed the Food Protection Manager class. And so as it pertains to that, in a family, so we have multiple generations, and you might have the parents, you might have, say, for instance, a mom and a daughter. You'll decide which of the two are going to be the one who's going to submit the application. Whose name? We only need one name. And that individual, whoever's name is on that application, then that is a person who's going to complete that class, the certificate, the Serve Safe Manager class. And that's the same kind of a class that is taken by the restaurant managers, anybody who's involved hands-on responsibility in a brick and mortar restaurant, because you now have a lot of responsibility as a MEHKO operator. So you're going to learn everything you wanted to know about the food preparation, about cleaning, making sure things are safe. And that is a class that you can either take online or in person. In addition to that, you'll also need the food handler cards. And those are for anybody who's going to be helping you, that you're going to hire, employees that are going to help you in the kitchen. And many people might already have that if they have some experience working, say, for instance, at a Starbucks, at McDonald's, In-N-Out, Pollo Loco, King Taco. They already probably have that handler card. And it's an easier to access online. I think it's an hour, 2 hours. It's a simpler process, but you will have to, when you have identified individuals that are going to help you, they will also have to submit, you'll submit on their behalf, their food handler cards. In addition to that, if depending on where you live, in some communities, our water is accessed through a well. If that's the case for anybody who's with us today or later, who's viewing this later on, if you access your water through a well, I know there's some of the communities along the 710 corridor that actually access their water through a well, you also be submitting the results of a test to determine that and to ensure that everything is clean and that you're good to go. And then you close out by submitting any application fees that might be relevant to you for the application. So again, these are the items that you'll have to include. So the SOP, I want you to focus on this. This is where you're going to spend most of your time. You might already have that SOP in your head. And again, it's not something you're creating from scratch. You're able to download that document and start either checking off boxes or filling in the blank, depending on whatever question it's asking you. And you'll be submitting that with your application along with your menu. And then again, the reminder, the person who's going to be submitting the application, that person will be completing the class, ultimately taking the test so that they can receive a certificate. And that's the food manager certificate. And that will be included with your application as well. So as far as the food handler cards, who needs a food handler card? That is required for all individuals that are going to be involved in the preparation, the storage, or the service of the food in your MEHKO. So if somebody's role is going to be delivering the food, then they don't have to have a food handler card. The only time that they would also need the food handler card, that they're also going to be helping you in the kitchen with packing things up, with putting it away, with preparing, and they're also delivering, then they will need the food handler card. Now, the program allows you to have one full-time employee. That's 40 hours. But that's up to you then to decide. Maybe it's more convenient, instead of having one person 40 hours, maybe you want to divvy up that time. So instead of giving the 40 hours to Mary, you might want to give 20 hours to Mary and then another 20 hours to Robert. So now those 40 hours are utilized by Mary and Robert. As long as you don't exceed the 40 hours a week, then you're good to go. And for those of you that want more information on the two classes that I talked about, the two certificates, there's the URLs for the food protection manager. That's the more in-depth. And then we also have the food handler cards, and those are for the individuals who will be helping you in the kitchen. Briefly, we'll touch upon this. As I shared earlier, if you live in an area where you access your water via a well, then you'll be submitting in your application your well water test results. And they'll, at that point, want to just identify, is there any nitrate? Is there nitrite? Is there bacteria in the water? Again, we're using water so much through the course of the day of running our MEHKO to wash our hands, making sure that there's hot and cold water. Maybe there's water as part of the ingredients in our recipe. And then maybe we need the water to dilute the solvent we're going to use to disinfect the counters where we're all done for the end of the day. So again, it's really important to make sure that our water is safe. Of all the slides in the presentation, this is probably one of my favorite. And you'll say, what's so good about paying out? We don't like to pay. We don't like to spend our money. Well, the reason why is because for a short time right now, this is actually a gift to our community. There normally would have been an initial application fee of $597. And that fee is used to cover the application fee and also the inspection. But right now there's a subsidy. And these are funds that are being offered to our community in LA County. And it's for the first 1,000 that we have successfully completed and been approved, their MEHKO has passed, or when the funds of this program reach out and run out, and that would be June of next year of 2026, right? So it's one or the two. Now there's two criteria where you might not be eligible. Remember earlier in the presentation, I talked about that the MEHKO had already been in existence in other counties. So for instance, let's say that you were running a very successful MEHKO in Riverside and they issued you a subsidy. Well, that means you would not be eligible for the subsidy here in LA County because you already received the one subsidy in Riverside. Second scenario, let's say you lived in San Diego and your MEHKO is doing really good. And I made $60,000 in the first 6 months. Well, now I'm not eligible because if you make more than $50,000, that automatically means you're not eligible. So again, it's open to most people. Those would be the only two scenarios where you wouldn't be eligible for the subsidy. If you already received the subsidy in another county or if you made more than $50,000. So again, remember that this program through LA County is open to all LA County residents with the exception of those residents who live in three cities. So if you live in Pasadena, Long Beach, or Vernon, you will have to reach out directly to those cities, and they have their own health department. So they're the ones that are going to be organizing and running their own MEHKO program. Everybody else would be eligible. Now, you got the initial application waived. What you will be responsible for, because now you're a business owner, is your annual fee, right? You'll be paying $347 to the LA County Public Health to receive your public health permit. That's every year. I too am a small business owner, so I every year pay my permit to have my license here in my city. And the same will be for you. Every year, you'll go through the process of having the inspection, and you'll be issued the permit once you pay your fee. So again, your out-of-pocket will be $347. In this portion of the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about food safety basics, and that'll be covered more in depth when you take the food manager class. In this section, we'll talk about potentially hazardous foods. They're referred to as PHFs. And then we'll look at foodborne illnesses, right? And some of the risk factors and how you can actually minimize that. And then we'll close out with the inspection. So potentially hazardous foods, or the PHFs, are foods that require time or temperature control to limit the growth of harmful bacteria. So many times, me guilty as well, we are preparing food for ourselves or a family, and we get home from work and we make dinner, and we're so hungry, or we want to get in front of the TV so we can watch the news, that we leave whatever's left on the stove. And maybe we watch the news, and now we watch the next program, and then the next program. Meanwhile, your food has been sitting there on the stove. So that's the potential of growing bacteria and being not healthy. So as MEHKO operators, you really have a lot of responsibility, right? And it's also going to help us in our personal lives in terms of when we cook for ourselves and our families, right? Being more aware of the risk factors and things that we can control in minimizing the growth of bacteria. This slide gives you a little insight into what will be covered in the food manager classes provided to us by our friends at Public Health. So if you're preparing hot food, say for instance, I'm making a soup, chicken soup, I'm making some pasta sauce or some beans, then I need to ensure that my food is kept at 135 degrees or warmer than that. Let's say I start preparing my food in the morning, and I'm going to have the lunch crowd that I'm going to be serving. I'm with either delivery or pickup. And I start preparing my food at 9:30. I'm going to set my timer that within that 2-hour mark, so before 11:30, I want that timer to go off, because that's going to be my reminder that I need to warm up my food again. As you can see here, the reheating temperatures, PHFs that are cooked, cooled, and reheated for hot holding must reach a temperature of 165 degrees. So that needs to happen before that 2-hour mark. So public health tells us as well that as long as we have the temperature at 165 degrees and we hold it at least for 15 seconds, that minimizes any chance of any bacteria to be growing in there, right? So that's why when we started the presentation, remember that I said that any food that is cooled and reheated multiple times during the day has to be served that day, that we can't store it up and put it in the refrigerator and sell it the following day. Now you know why, right? Because during the course of that day, when you have your MEHKO operation and you're preparing food to be selling it, it's going to go through this process multiple times, probably during the day of heating it. It's going to get cold and you're going to heat it up again. And that's to ensure everybody stays safe. So more of this type of information will be covered when you take the food manager class. So here are some examples of what are considered PHFs. So when it comes to food of animal origin, they include things like beef, pork, fish, dairy, and shell eggs. So that's everything having to do with cooking it, storing it, and serving it. We know plant-based foods have become more and more popular, and those are also delicate foods. So we got to keep those cool, the extreme. And those include things like the raw seed sprouts, cut melons, cut tomatoes, or any of the cooked food made from plants, like that innocent little rice, right, that we love to eat, quinoa, and we got to be very careful with those as well, the heat and the cold. To the right, you'll see that very helpful food safety guide. You could download that. That's also housed on the LA County Public Health website. You can see there's lots of resources there you'll be able to access, and that'll give you more information and much, much more you'll get when you attend the food manager class, either virtually or in person. Other things to keep in mind that are risk factors, right? You're now a MEHKO operator, a restaurant owner. You have a lot of responsibility. You don't want people to get sick. So things that could cause people to get sick: improper cooking temperatures, improper hot-cold holding temperatures. And then also in terms of our sourcing, right? That's one of the questions that's going to be asked of you in the SOP is where you're going to be accessing your food. We know the price of foods continues to go up, and it has been the last couple of months. And we might be tempted, right? You get those inserts in the mail in your mailbox, and now you're seeing one place offering chicken half price of what's offered at your favorite market, right? Whether it be your Sprouts, your Ralph's, or your Vallartas, wherever you shop. This place, you have no idea who they are. They're now offering it half of what everybody else is. So what we want you to think about and focus on the fact is you only want to buy ingredients from reputable places that you know where it's coming from, the source. You also want to be aware, because we're hosting our MEHKO from our home. You have many people that live in the household, possibly. You might have a couple of different employees. Is really being aware for signs of somebody who's sniffling, who's sneezing. It's hard to tell sometimes. Is it allergy related? Is it the flu? Is it a cold, or is it COVID? So in this case, you'll also learn there'll be criteria that public health will ask you to follow in terms of when you identify something that potentially means somebody's sick, shutting down for a couple of days. They'll give you some guidance on how that's going to be handled moving forward. Also important is how you're cleaning and making sure that your equipment's not contaminated, whether it be the utensils or the counters where you're cooking, right? All of those things are really, really important. Using the right ingredients to sanitize. Again, those things will be discussed when you take the food manager class. I know we only have a little bit of time, less than an hour, and there's a lot of information that I covered, but there's a lot of resources too. So when you go onto the public health website, you're going to see what's called the self-inspection checklist. It's in multiple languages, and that's a really good guide to help you gauge where you are in the process. You might realize that most of the stuff you already can say yes to. You're acknowledging maybe the things that we talked about today, that you're not going to sell certain things, that you have the working appliances in your kitchen that are going to be helping you to prepare your food. If you have any questions, and maybe you get to a section where you have a lot of blanks, maybe that's a good time then to ask for help, or have somebody maybe reinforce a doubt that you have. So you can call, you can send an email, you can talk to our team, or if you see us at any of these technical support clinics, this is a good time to actually assess that before you turn everything in for the inspection. So here's what to expect. It's hard to say expect, inspect, right? They sound similar. So here's what to expect during the home inspection. So once you turned in all those documents that we talked about earlier, you have the application, you turn in the SOP, the menu, you have your certificate, your manager certificate, and now you've got the information. You have public health that's reached out, whether it be through an email, whether it be a call, whatever the choice that you selected for them to contact you. And they've now scheduled a date and time for an inspector to come by. So when that inspector comes to your home, depending on, do you have one door, two door access, that's the door they're going to come in to your home for the inspection. They have no need to be looking at any other room. But if they have to walk through a living room, they might just be looking, but they're not going to be inspecting that. You're going to direct them to where the kitchen is, and then point out any other rooms that might also be used in the MEHKO, right? So maybe I have a kitchen dinette, maybe there's a small little room that I want to utilize as well. Maybe that's where I'm going to be storing or placing the food that's been prepared and ready for pickup or delivery. So those are the areas you want to point out, because they will be inspecting that too. They're going to look at your application. They might, ask a couple of questions, making sure it's you that's going to be running the MEHKO. Go through your plan, making sure that you have the adequate appliances in there that you need to prepare your food, depending on what you're making. I need a stove, I need an oven. Checking the refrigerator, make sure it's the right temperature. Turning on the water, make sure my hot and cold water work, because I need that, right? Multiple times a day I'll be using water. They'll also check the water in the restroom, right? Where you and your employees are going to be washing their hands. They're going to be looking at cabinets, right? Where am I going to be storing the ingredients that I'm going to be using for my MEHKO? And you can have everything in the same cabinets that you have for your personal use, for your family's use, as long as it's labeled and separated. So for instance, if I only have one cupboard, then I'm going to make sure, your choice, left or right, I'm going to put all of my family's food ingredients on the left, and on the right is going to be all the MEHKO labeled MEHKO. So when that inspector comes, they can clearly see that I've separated the food, which is going to be for MEHKO, and it's labeled. And we'll do the same thing with the refrigerator, right? Making sure that everything is separated and labeled. As far as refrigerator, you can have everything in the same refrigerator as long as it's separated. But if you have space and you'd like to have a refrigerator that's just designated for the MEHKO, then these are two places where you can actually house that refrigerator, either in your kitchen, or if you have a garage, you will be able to put it in the enclosed garage, but it's not able to be outdoors. We know that during the pandemic, outdoor living, outdoor dining became very popular, but they don't allow you to have and place the MEHKO refrigerator outside. You can place your personal refrigerator outside if you want, and then keep the MEHKO in the kitchen. Also, depending on your menu, maybe you want to have, maybe some of the things that you're going to be offering are grilled. Chicken, beef, vegetables. They allow you to have a grill right outside the door of your kitchen. They will go out that day to inspect the grill, see how it's clean, how you have it covered. The only thing you're able to then do outside is actually the food that's going to be cooked, because it needs to be on the grill as part of your process. Everything else, the seasoning, the marinating, that has to occur actually in the kitchen. In addition to that, they'll look under cabinets, right? We just want to make sure that there aren't any critters living in there that shouldn't be, that it's clean. We don't have any vermin. We love our pets or our family, but during working hours, when the MEHKO is open, we're not going to have our cats or dogs or puppies or rabbits in the MEHKO. We're not going to have our own family in there, right? So when the MEHKO is in operation, you're not able to then serve breakfast or make breakfast or lunch for the family. It's business hours. So again, make sure that the pets are not anywhere near the MEHKO. And that, for the most part, is what they're going to be looking for, making sure that things work. So if you have your oven and your stove that are required for what you're going to be making sure that everything works. If something seems to be off, maybe there's a burner that's not working, or maybe one of the knobs, I would hold off. I'd make sure that I repaired everything before the inspector comes out. But in the event that there happens to be something that needs to be fixed, they will come back one more time without a fee. But if they have to come back a subsequent time, so a second time, then you will be paying their hourly rate to come out for the inspection. So this process you go through every year. Remember, it's a 1-year permit, and this process you'll go through every year. One thing that you want to keep in mind, if during the course of your MEHKO, remember how we started talking about there was a lot of flexibility, and you could start with one menu and you might decide to change. So for instance, maybe I'm going to be making salads, and it's all, nothing requiring me to heat it, right? I'm not including any protein. It's going to be all plant-based. But now I'm interested in actually making some chicken enchiladas, which would require me to have the stove and possibly the oven. So now my menu has changed. Within 20 days of me starting this change, I need to notify public health, environmental health specifically, and I have a revised SOP. Environmental health team, this is my new menu. This is what I'm preparing now. I'm adding to my menu, aside from the plant-based salad, I'm also having some chicken enchiladas and some rice and beans. So I do have a refrigerator and a stove that I'll be using for that. They might come out to check that out again, making sure that everything is working. That, for the most part, again, like I said, this is a process that you'll go through every year. Here's an easier slide that if you have your cameras and you want to snap a little picture of this simplifies what they're going to be looking for and what to inspect during their visit to your MEHKO. They'll look at the kitchen and any areas that will be used for the MEHKO. They want to look at your cleaning process, your sanitation practices. They want to make sure that there aren't any pests around, that they need to be any evidence that there's been something there. Making sure that the hot and cold water work in your kitchen and in the restroom. And that all the equipment that I need to be used to run my MEHKO, my refrigerator, my stove, my oven, my grill, if I'm using a grill, that all works perfectly fine. And that all can really help me then carry out my goal of operating a MEHKO in my home. So how do we turn your application? And there's something for everybody. We all have different ways of communicating with people that we feel most comfortable with. You have the option of going in person if you'd like. Their offices are located they're in the city of Baldwin Park, and that is off the 605 freeway. It's sandwiched right in between the 210 and the 10 going east. If you're in the LA area, that's going east. You can drop off the application there in person if you choose. You can also upload all the documents, the application, the SOP, your menu, your certificates, and you can upload those as well to the address that you see there. And if at any time during this process you have questions, you can contact them directly. There are multiple languages accessible there. And then again, when we have our technical support clinics throughout LA County, you can ask questions there. The program is fairly new, as I shared. This started in November, and we have a little over 200 so far applications that have come in. And we're seeing more and more people that are realizing their dreams. I had a couple of weeks ago, my team and our team had the pleasure, we were invited to one of the MEHKO operators that we met a couple of months ago. They have a sit down, and it was a beautiful offering that they have, that it's basically foods that are international foods, but there's also a cultural component. It'll be like a family style seating. You'll have your individual plates, but really it's adding a dimension to just having a meal. And that's what the MEHKO operation, the MEHKOs will offer, is depending on what you're comfortable with, what you're looking for. There's another gentleman that sells pinwheel sandwiches that I've spoken to, and I'm learning a lot about their journey. So I'm excited to hear about your journeys and your plans. We have some time for some questions, and we're going to be, touching upon those things and hopefully guiding you through finishing the application process and becoming MEHKO operators.
All right. Thank you so much, Angelica. So we actually got quite a few questions that came through. We can certainly, I'm able to go a little over 3 o'clock if we need to, but we do kind of want to try to, so we'll see what we can get through in this time. So I'm going to go ahead.
For you, Danielle, if we have questions, can we then later, is the library able to then respond to those? And we can always then later, you can send me the questions and we can respond. Are you able to do that as well?
Yeah, I can make a note of that. Just trying to think of how we would, we'll figure out a way to do that. Let me see. Oh, more questions coming through. So let's just start at the beginning and see how far we get.
Perfect.
And all right. So first, lots of great questions. And actually, I think you did kind of answer some of them. So if we need to kind of just skip through a little bit. But the first one has to do with pets. And I know you touched on that. So just real quick, can you have dogs in your home? That's what this...
yes, you can. They just can't be hanging out with you in the MEHKO while the MEHKO is in operation, and definitely not when the inspector comes by.
Great. Next question. Do you get an EIN number for this business? So that is the number, what is an employer ID number through the IRS?
So this is a question that you will have to then, even before you start this journey, probably understanding, how do I want to set up my business? Do I want to be a sole prop? Do I want to be a corporation? So I recommend either through LA County Department of Economic Opportunity. The library might actually have a business arm that helps small businesses. But I would recommend that you connect with them in terms of the best way to set up your business, because most likely they will recommend you do get that. But it's more the structure that you want to think about. How do I want to structure my business?
Great. Yeah. And the city of Los Angeles, I know, and I believe throughout the county too, there's worksource centers,
Right,
that
business source centers.
it's all free, or business source, not worksource. So, all right. You did mention this already, but just to reiterate, about needing a separate refrigerator for your business beside your personal home refrigerator, you do not need a separate refrigerator, correct?
Everything you have, and you don't have to worry about getting commercial grade. Some people think they have to buy commercial appliances. As long as your appliances you have in your home right now, your apartment, your condo, your studio are working, that's perfectly great, as long as it supports your menu.
Okay, great. I'm skipping a few. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Can you not sell frozen food, or can you?
So in this case, no. Anything that you prepare has to be prepared within 24 hours. So for instance, that's the cycle of one day. So I start making something like my empanadas, or I'm making some rolls, some egg rolls. I need to make them and then sell them within that 24-hour window. So it can't be frozen.
Great. And that answers another question we had, which was, if you were doing barbecue, could you put a brisket on the smoker at 12:01 a.m. and serve it that day?
Yes.
Sounds like you wouldn't even need to do that necessarily.
Right. So it's a 24-hour window.
Right.
So you're set.
That's great. Okay. I'm going through the questions. Okay. You did talk about changing the menu. Here's a question. How many things can you have on a menu? Can you change the menu? I know you touched on that a little bit, but how big can your menu be, basically?
So there's no limit to the size of the menu. I think what they just recommend is start small and add. That way you can then gain the confidence yourself. And sometimes if it's a smaller kitchen, what our colleagues at Public Health have said, we might limit the quantity. We want to make sure you're comfortable, and then we're going to add to that. So that would be my recommendation, that maybe add to your menu. And that way you gain the confidence, and then you get to see what people are actually responding to and what they like.
Great. Okay. More questions. I know we're running through these very quickly. This viewer said, I'm planning to start a tiffin service, so I'd have to change the menu every week. I believe a tiffin service is something like almost like a subscription, where people are going to be getting something every day or every Wednesday or something. So I think the question is more, people don't want to get the same meal every day. So if they're needing to change the menu frequently, is that going to be possible?
So you can, as long as it's something, for instance, when I talked about the extreme variations, like you're having a plant-based salad, which is cold, and I'm not using my oven and my stove, and now I'm having enchiladas. If you find that those foods are, for the most part, groupings are very similar in the preparation, then I don't think, but you would want to show, these are the things I plan to sell. These are the ingredients that will be found in it. So I would upload and basically load everything you potentially would sell. And that way they have that. So when they have to come in and you have to notify them of a change, if it's a drastic change, or now I'm having to use the stove and the oven, and before I didn't have to use that, or now I have an air fryer and I didn't have to use that before, that's when you'll need to submit that drastic change in the plan.
Okay, great. And then let's see, we've got a couple of, okay, maybe is there a similar program for Orange County residents? Yes, there is, but I don't know if we know what the website is.
I'm not sure if Orange County has it in place yet. You'll have to reach out to them directly. The last I attended an event in Orange County earlier part of the year, they still didn't have MEHKO. That could have changed. So I would recommend that you reach out to the health department in Orange County.
Health department. Great. Okay. Another great question. Are you able to sell at pop-up events?
Okay. So this is a great question. We're not able to sell at, for instance, at a farmer's market. I'm not able to go, and now you can as your own, you just can't go as your MEHKO. So what I didn't catch the person's name, but say for myself, Angelica can go to a farmer's market, but I can't go representing my MEHKO. Now you can go and have flyers. I can have pictures. I can have video, but I can't have samples. Even samples are not permitted. So again, it's something to really think about if this model is going to work for you. It's great for people that are trying to get their business off the ground and eventually move into maybe a commercial kitchen.
All right. Great. We have more questions. Let's see what we can fit in here. And that actually reminded me of another question, which would be the farmers market. Also, if you would be able to sell for farmers market. Okay. Let's see. Is there an age restriction for MEHKO applicants? That's a good question.
So currently the applicants must be 18 years of age, and that is at the state level, right? In terms of the age when you enter into a contract. So for the time being, it's 18, unless something was to change in the next couple of months, enabling somebody younger to participate.
Okay, awesome. And here is, let me see. I find the current comment. Okay. Sorry, they're still coming in, so I'm having a hard time going through here, but this is great. I'm so glad we have so much participation.
And we'll have some in person too, so we want to let people know that if we don't get to questions and you want to refresh, we'll share a little later a website, and actually that's where you'll see any upcoming other webinars. And in person, we'll be having, if you live in the LA proper area near South LA, we'll be having it in person, and also in the Willowbrook area. And then next month we'll be moving into Supervisor Hahn's area along the 710 corridor. So lots of other opportunities for you to get more information.
Yes. So just with the next few minutes we have, we'll get a couple more questions. Who should opt for a cottage permit instead of MEHKO?
It really depends on what you're selling, right? So if you're going to sell, I'm going to sell dried fruit. I'm going to sell hard candy. I'm having cookies. If you go onto the LA County Public Health website and look under cottage food, it'll give you the directory and the list. It's very specific on what falls under that category, but you can't combine both because of the types of ingredients that you might find in, like eggs and one that you wouldn't find in others. So take a look at that list if you think that you might be more inclined to have a cottage food permit.
All right, great. And I think let's just touch on this one real quick, the carts. What kind of carts would be okay? What permit do we need? If you could touch on that real quick.
So the cart depends on the kind of food you're going to be selling, right? That's going to really be the driver in terms of the cart. So if I'm going to be selling ice cream, prepackaged paletas, that's going to be low risk. It's not as extravagant cart. I'm going to be selling cut up fruit. Not as extravagant. I'm going to be just a cart that's going to be used for holding. I'm going to be serving hot sandwiches that were already made. I'm just keeping them warm, or I'm warming up tamales. Again, it's just keeping it warm. I have churros that were made. They're just keeping it warm. And then the higher risk, I'm going to be selling some tacos. The meat was partially already cooked either at my commissary or my home. And now I'm just finishing up that meat to serve the tacos. That's going to be a higher risk. So different price point and different carts. And those I recommend then to you reach out directly to public health. There could be online as well, some examples depending on what you're going to sell.
Wonderful. And then this has come up also. I rent. Do I need to own my own home or live in a single family home to be approved for MEHKO?
So it doesn't, you don't need to own your home. You could live, I've seen, like I said, I was in a MEHKO that was a sit down, and it was a nice, spacious apartment, and they laid out a long family style table in their living room, right? So really what you want to do is check one recommendation. If you lease, you want to take a look at your lease. Are there any clauses in that lease that say I cannot run a business from my home? In addition to that, I highly recommend, and there are free resources for you to have your lease reviewed. Bedzevic is one, and we can provide that contact information to them. Some of the business source centers can refer as well, but any legal service that doesn't charge can take a look at that lease and making sure that there's no clauses that say I cannot sell in my home. So it doesn't matter the size as well. So what would happen is, say a kitchen is a smaller kitchen. I have seen some that have been like a studio size. And public health might say, you know what, it's a little smaller, So why don't we work with a smaller quantity for now? Instead of 30, let's say 20. And let's give you 4 months just to make sure you get comfortable. And then we'll look at expanding upon that. Again, public health, they want you to succeed and they want to issue these permits. So they don't want to limit you. Just make sure that you follow the guidelines and start small. And that way that's going to lead to your success.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So we still have some questions coming through. What I think that we'll do, since it is 3 o'clock, we're getting some questions that are kind of specific about, can I sell this type of food? Can I, that are more specific to an individual's person, their situation. So I'm wondering how we can get folks to be able to follow up. You mentioned, now, first of all, folks are 100%, if they'd like to email me here at the library, I'd be glad to, connect them. But what would be the best way? Like you said, there's upcoming events, or if they just have a question like, can I do, we had one about cold brew. Can I just do cold brew or whatever? Is there like a best way to like ask that question?
So yes, you can, because I actually met a gentleman who was at a chamber event and he was handing out samples of that. As long, again, as it's made within that 24-hour cycle, you can sell it. So he was selling delicious coffee. I wish I would have purchased more. There are a couple of, I see one that's there. There's an email address there that's homebasedfoods@publichealthph.lacounty.gov. Danielle, I don't know whether if it's easier for them to come to you and you send one bulk email and then we make sure that they go, if we can't answer them, they go to our team in public health for more specific that are not the normal questions. And then again, if you feel that it would be beneficial to attend and in person, the website that you want to go to, it's basically where we have our Eventbrite. It would be BIT, right there. So I would recommend you go on there. That's going to let you know about other webinars that we have with our partners and then our upcoming workshops. So the next workshop that we have is on the 11th, and that'll be at the Firestone and Florence Library in Los Angeles. And then the 30th of August will be in Willowbrook. We'll have our class there will be on Saturday morning at the library. And then there's also an event that's hosted by Metro. We're going to be there with a table, and you can come by and talk to our team. That's going to be on August 9th. And that's at the Rosa Parks. I don't have the address here, but it's at the Rosa Parks station there on August 11th. And we'll have a table there talking about MEHKO. But again, this the bit.ly, the RSVP is going to show upcoming workshops that we have, both in person and online with our partners. And if there happens to be anybody who's watching this later and has access, has a connection to nonprofits or large groups that you think would be interested in us hosting a webinar with you, please reach out. We'd love to connect.
Okay. Great. So yeah, I would say for those of you, if we couldn't get to your question today, just because they're still coming through, and we do need to wrap up within the next few minutes, feel free to what's on screen, the homebasedfoods@ph.lacounty.gov. Send the questions through there, or if you'd like, you can always email me here, and I can try to connect you with Angelica or whoever might, if we are able to go through and answer some of the specific questions you have. Basically, yeah, we're here to help. So there was another question that I think just if we can just real quick do, because I think this is really important. Is there a website that provides people where they can find MEHKO businesses? So, I mean, if you want to use a MEHKO, if you want to get a meal, like, is there one website you can go and find them, or is it no?
So right now, there's not a per se website. They're working on that. But if you go on to the public health, LA County Public Health, it'll give you a list of those permitted MEHKOs, right? And you can go on there and identify permitted MEHKOs. Also, I highly recommend that you use a hashtag MEHKO, MEHKO, and you'll see MEHKOs populate there. If you live in the Valley, I actually was at, they're in Silmar, it's called Las Changas, and it's Mexican food, delicious. They're only open on the weekends, sit down. The mom cooks and the son does the social media. So again, also follow the DO Instagram. lots of good resources. If there's any grants or funding, if there's upcoming webinars, that information is really useful as well. So follow the Department of Economic Opportunity on Instagram. All the great information that you can find is there.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I said, we still have so many great questions, but we do need to wrap up. So I'll just say again, there was actually some folks who are in the comments saying, can I get this presentation? Can I rewatch it? As a reminder, as I said in the beginning, this is being recorded. And so you'll just, as soon as we're done here, it's maybe a couple minute lag, but basically this presentation is going to be up on the library's YouTube channel, and it's going to stay there. And so you can come back and watch it and look at the presentation and review it. You can share it with people who weren't able to be here today. So that's all there. But again, feel free to follow all of those links, and then feel free to email me. I'll put my email up here again real quick. Just real quick, as a shout out to the library, since I am a librarian here, for those of you who like to do some research on your own, obviously with regard to the MEHKO program, you're going to need to follow the channels. But Angelica had mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation how important social media and online advertising is going to be for your MEHKO business. So here in the Business and Economics Department, we have a ton of books on that topic. And so again, you can email me there if you need any recommendations. Also, our science department here at Central Library has a fabulous, extremely extensive culinary cookbook collection. And so if you want to expand your menu or get some ideas, they have a lot of that too. So lots of great resources for you. Yeah, I think that is it. Well, again, we didn't get to all the questions. I apologize if we didn't get to your question, but follow up and hopefully we can get all that for you. And Angelica, is there anything else? If somebody just wants to know the next step, just remind them what they need to do real quick.
First of all, congratulations for being here today. And there's so many opportunities right now. This is perfect for somebody who's always wanted to have a restaurant, but the overhead were so high, and how you have no overhead. It's your kitchen. So take advantage of the resources. Definitely follow the Department of Economic Opportunity on their Instagram page. If there's any funding that becomes available, this program is being funded by dollars that were utilized from American Rescue dollars, if you know, during President Biden's presidency and funding that came out after the pandemic. There'll continue to be grants that are out there. Some are earmarked for sidewalk vendors. If you happen to be a sidewalk vendor that was in business, say back in 2023, there are grants for those people. There are grants for people and special programs for people that live in unincorporated areas. So again, just really be open to information being receptive. And you might have to, some people attend the webinars and then they come to our in-person because they feel like there's some questions that they have. We're here to help. And again, thank you for being here. We'll hopefully get some of the questions that we weren't able to get to. And other thing, if you happen to have any Spanish speakers, as Danielle said, on Thursday, the library will be hosting the MEHKO presentation in Spanish. So make sure you share with family and friends as well. Maybe you know a little bit of Espanol and you can join too.
Okay, I got a question to put the bit.ly link in the chat. Let me see if I am able to do that. And I might not be able to be honest.
So I'll spell it out really slowly.
Okay,
so
here we go. I'm able to do it. Hang on just a second. We're doing, let's see if this works. There it is. And since this is recorded, it's going to be there. So, all right. Okay, great. Awesome. So thank you so much. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. It's just 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. So thank you everybody for joining. It was a great turnout. Sorry if your question didn't get answered, but again, there's plenty of opportunity to follow up. Angelica, this is a great opportunity. Thank you so much for presenting.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Okay. Thanks everybody. Okay. Bye.